I want to welcome you to this morning's Interwatch briefing. Obviously, we got a full house. Let me real quickly do some introductions. I want to thank the Salvation Army. We've got Cheryl Warren and Brian Carroll from the Salvation Army that are here today. From the Red Cross, we have Marina Sarson, Brian Sandin, and Janae Unruh, as well as members from the KBI, and I'll introduce the head table here in just a second. Sharon DeGraff from the City of Wichita's Law Department, and Laura Randales from 911 Communications. We are all here on behalf of what happened last week, and if there's questions that you have of the individual agencies, we thought it'd be helpful to have them all here. Real quickly, I want to introduce the head table, and then this is Sheriff Jeff Easter of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department. Sitting next to him is Frank Pappas. He's with the KBI. And then this is Sheriff Randy Henderson of the Reno County Sheriff's Department. And I'm going to introduce Chief Williams, who will begin the remarks today. Chief Williams.
I'd like to say good morning to each and every one of you. Before I make my remarks, I just want to first acknowledge the American Red Cross for their efforts to help us in finding locations for those families that were displaced over the last 30 hours of that event. Also want to acknowledge the Salvation Army's disaster relief, because they were invaluable when it comes to providing refreshments, whether it be water, Gatorade, sandwiches, you name it. They were invaluable to make sure that the members that were out there doing this event had plenty of nourishment to keep them focused and things as we dealt with this situation. I also want to acknowledge the owner and management of the South Lake Village apartment complex. And the reason I like to acknowledge them is because the fact they offered us space. They allowed us to have access to be able to go inside and look at apartments, to understand the layout or the layout of the respective apartment. So that way it helped us as we looked at our planning and things of that nature there. The other part of that is they were very understanding as well as accommodating throughout this situation. The other thing sometimes get lost in an event of this nature is the humanistic aspect of it. What I mean by that is we had several residents there that, just like our partners with the American Red Cross and the Salvation Army, citizens were also providing support and assistance as far as refreshments. Many of them baked home cookies, if you can believe that, and brought lemonade because of the fact that they realized we had a very challenging task ahead of us. And so to me that was very important, and like I said, that gets lost in the discussion. When I look at the public safety partners that were very critical to this event, we have the emergency medical services. And you probably say, why were they important? Because they were the ones that managed the rehabilitation facility, the center. As the SWAT members came in after being out for long periods of time, we made sure that we checked their vitals, and so the emergency medical services was great. Emergency communications, they made sure that we had a dispatcher to monitor the events as they occur. Emergency management services provided us lights if we needed lights throughout this operation. The Wichita Fire Department, they were there throughout. They provided assistance as far as water that we needed to deal with this operation. When I look at the number of SWAT teams, there were 9 different SWAT teams over the course of this event. And we're talking SWAT teams from Butler County Sheriff's Office, Derby Police Department, the Harvey County Emergency Response Team, Hutchinson Police Department, Kansas Bureau of Investigations, McPherson Police Department, the Reno County Sheriff's Office, Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office, the Southern Kansas SWAT Team, also formerly known as the Sumner County SWAT Team, and of course the Wichita Police Department SWAT Team as well. I'm going to give you some background as far as how this situation evolved over a period of time. I can tell you that as we got into this operation, we gained information that the suspect, Mr. Jared Wosipi, had been consuming drugs prior to committing the robbery there at the Kmart store at 47th and Broadway, and also after committing the robbery. We gained this information from his girlfriend. We also gained information through the assistance of the U.S. Marshal's Office that he was making bombs and putting nails in them. And we had a chance to also interview the agent that received that information. We learned from the family members that he had talked about suicide by cop. that he wasn't going to come out, that we would have to come in and get him. He also made comments about if we came in, the apartment would go up like the 4th of July. And so that information was critical to us as we began to develop our strategies on what was going to be the best way to get this young man out of that apartment that he was in. Here's a timeline of events that led up to where we got to last week. As we know, July 4th, he was a suspect in an attempt first-degree murder where he injured his girlfriend, and there was a warrant issued on July the 5th for his arrest. Also on July 5th, we learned that the Wichita Police Department and the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office had tried to stop a stolen 2006 caravan that was stolen from a business, stolen from the Woodbridge Home Interior Incorporation out east. We learned that the suspect was driving that vehicle at that time, Mr. Wilsipity. Of course, then on July 10th is where he commits the robbery there at the Kmart. He goes in to rob the store of drugs. While inside the store, he fires multiple rounds at people that are inside of the store near the pharmacy area. And because of the astute attention of a citizen, we were able to get a partial tag on the vehicle that he was driving. And the officers were able to locate that vehicle at 4141 South Seneca. Once we located the vehicle, we were able to identify the apartment that he was in. Initially, we made contact, however, he didn't come out at that time. We were able to get a female that was in the apartment out of the apartment. And she's the one that was able to tell us exactly, what was going on as far as his drug consumption. At about 2:41, we realized that we activated the SWAT team. Our SWAT team was activated to respond to the location. I can tell you that between the hours of about 7 p.m. till about 10:30 p.m., there was 5 different occasions where he fired shots at the police office, at our officers that were trying to get him out of the building. At about 10 o'clock, through consultation at the command post, we made a decision to initiate a controlled blast on the south side of the apartment building. The reason we decided to initiate a controlled blast is to be able to get tear gas inside, because we realized through our observation that he had barricaded the doors and the windows, which would inhibit our ability to get in there. Throughout the night, after doing the initial blast, throughout the night we continued to wait him out. There was periods of time where we would continue to put in tear gas, hopefully to get him to come out. However, he did not. So we spent most of the early part of the morning of July the 11th in a holding mode, trying to see what he was going to do. See if he was injured. We didn't know. And so finally, about 5:40 a.m. is when we had contact with him again. At that time, he stated that, "I'm coming out." He repeated that on several different occasions. However, he did not. More than likely, what he was doing was kicking a hole into the apartment that was to the west of where he was. Because what he was able to do was, once he kicked a hole in the sheetrock, he then gained access in the farther west apartment, where eventually we were able to get him out of. And so he did not come out. At about 8:24, we threw what we call a throw phone inside the apartment, getting him to pick up the phone to try to talk with us and see if he can cooperate with us. Between the hours of about 9 to 5, we used loudspeakers. We kept telling the suspect at that time, Mr. Wilsipity, that he's under arrest. Periodically, we used tear gas during that time as well. We constantly asked him to surrender, and he chose not to. He did not respond to any of our requests. We just made the decision to deploy one of our K-9s into the apartment to see if the K-9 may be able to bring him out. As the K-9 and the officers and SWAT members were inside of the previous apartment, he apparently heard the officers and the K-9, and he began to fire shots again. And so we return fire. We did what we call suppression fire. The reason we did that suppression fire was to afford our members to get out of that apartment safely. And so that's why we did that. And that happened about 5:46 from that standpoint. Between the hours of about 9:30 and about 10 o'clock, a little after 10 o'clock, we made the decision to do 3 more controlled explosive events as far as trying to gain entry, trying to get him to come out, trying to see if we can see where he was at throughout this entire ordeal. I can tell you that we also use a water cannon to knock down the sheetrocks in both apartments to give us, number one, a better view of where he was at, and also, secondly, to allow us to be able to deploy tear gas, because keep in mind, he had the windows and the doors, patio doors, all barricaded with furniture and you name it, and so we needed to try to get in there. At about 10 o'clock, the decision was made based on the fact that, number one, he had a warrant for his arrest, attempted first degree warrant. The fact that he had committed a crime as far as robbery and firing at the citizens at the Kmart. The fact that he fired upon our officers. And his non-compliance, the information that we had that if we come in there, the facility, the department's going to go up like the 4th of July. And looking at the fatigue factor of our officers, the fact that we had been out there well over 30 plus hours, and in consultation with the city law department, the city manager, as well as my colleagues, Sheriff Eastern, Sheriff Henderson, the decision was made. I made the final decision to go ahead and take him out. If the shot was there, let's take it and end this threat to our community. And so that's what we did from that standpoint. When you look at everything that we tried to do, we negotiated, we tried to negotiate with them, we tried to talk with them on the telephone, we used loudspeakers, we eventually began to use tear gas to try to force him out. We used the water pressure cannons to knock down the sheetrock to give us a better view. We used control blasts in order to create openings. The dog, there again, we had to protect our dog as well as the dog handler. And so when you look at all of these things, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the decision was made by me to go ahead and take him out. I can tell you that through consultation, I've asked Sheriff Henderson of the Reno County Sheriff Department to spearhead this investigation, and he's here, and I'm going to turn it over to Sheriff Henderson.
Thank you, Chief. I want to start off by saying my heart goes out to the innocent families, the displaced neighbors, and to the officers that were at the scene and their family for the tragedy they had to go through. Shortly after Sedgwick County Attorney Mark Bennett took office, he requested a meeting with law enforcement agencies throughout South Central Kansas region. The topic of this meeting was to talk about a unified approach in working officer-involved shootings. And the goal is simple: to maintain the highest level of integrity during these investigations, and today we're moving forward with that approach. During the incident last week at 4141 South Seneca, with more than 100 law enforcement officers and over 10 law enforcement agencies involved in the incident, it is very important that this type of unified approach was made. As the events of last Thursday evening were unfolding, discussions were taking place by law enforcement administrators and the Sedgwick County Attorney's Office as to who would lead this investigation. I was approached by Wichita Police Chief Norman Williams and Sedgwick County Sheriff Jeff Easter and requested that the Reno County Sheriff's Office lead this investigation. Of course, I agreed. I have assigned 3 detectives to head up this investigation, along with assistance from the District Attorney's Office and the Kansas State Fire Marshal's Office. We have in the neighborhood of 70 law enforcement officers to interview. 30 of those were done late Thursday night, early Friday morning, and the officers will be starting again this afternoon and conducting those interviews. We also will be interviewing neighbors of the complex. At the completion of this investigation, all the reports will be turned over to the Sedgwick County Attorney's Office, who will make the final disposition. I know there are many families, officers, and departments waiting for closure on this incident, and I will do everything I can to expedite the reports get concluded so we can finish this. However, I will not jeopardize the integrity of this case by rushing. Thank you.
We'll now open it up for questions that you may have.
Chief, could you talk about the decision, when you had to make the decision to take the suspect out? Was that done from a distance? Did you have to send in SWAT officers? Exactly how did that take place?
It was done at a distance, safe distance as far as where we were positioned throughout this operation. So we did not endanger our members.
So with a rifle basically from a long distance, a sniper type situation?
It was at a safe distance.
So, Chief, he was shot by a police officer, not himself.
I have not seen the autopsy report, so I can't say 100%.
What's the suspect's connection to that apartment unit?
Apparently, he was dating the young lady that stayed at the apartment. It's my understanding over the last couple of months they had a relationship or friendship.
And he had another relationship then with the original suspect from the 4th, right? Because wasn't that also deemed a girlfriend? But I know that was in Derby, so it might not be.
It's my understanding that it was a relationship.
But it's a different female from
Different
the one.
female,
Okay,
yes.
that's right.
Total different.
Do you know his motive on the threat about the bombs? Was there a particular target for those bombs that he was aiming at besides you guys? Was he wanting to bomb someone other than law enforcement coming at him? Do you know?
That I cannot answer that question. I do not know what his intent was. All I know is the information that was provided to us that helped us in our decision-making process.
How many agencies were involved with the take him out call? Is that just Wichita Police?
There were 2 agencies involved, and I'm not going to name the agencies. Actually, there was 3 agencies.
And do you know about approximately how many rounds were fired?
No.
Chief, could you talk about the controlled explosions? Were those like flash grenade type explosions, or were these designed to break apart building material, like a destructive explosion?
They were just controlled explosive devices that allowed us to gain entry to the inside of the apartment. It was controlled. It wasn't just scattered. It was controlled. I'm going to take one more question.
How quickly after that shot was fired by WPD that you felt like it was under control enough to advance into the apartment and check on the condition of Jared?
I never said it was
Oh.
repeated. I said I said that a shot was they were given instruction to take the shot. I know who took the shot, but until the investigation is complete, I'm not going to say who took the shot.
Okay, but still, the question then, time after the shot was fired, that there was a confidence level that he was suppressed.
That I can't tell you. I can tell you that we were hesitant to remove him because we were worried about the possibility of booby traps. And because of that concern, we continue to be very diligent in regards to how we approach him. So I can't give you a time frame on that.